candid shop. We speaking on things you not. Just press play and let it rock. Hey, welcome to the candid shop. Whoa, welcome to the candid shop. We speaking on things you not. Just press play and let it rock. Hey, welcome to the candid shop. Oh, feel like we going through mad things. Gotta keep it real when they choose not. We gon' talk about it when the news drop. Welcome to the show where you know we don't fake this. Keep your opinion to yourself if it don't make sense.
Hey, Podcast Nation. It is your girl, Candidly Kristen, and this is The Candid Shop, your number one destination for candid conversations. Today, I have a very special artist spotlight that I am shining on, jazz singer slash pianist and founder of Jazz for Peace, an organization that provides empowerment grants, sustainable funding, and advocacy for nonprofits, artists, and all outstanding causes worldwide to enable them to be more productive and successful, Mr. Rick DellaRatta. Welcome, Rick, to the Candid Shop. It is my absolute pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I'm so glad to be here.
And so, guys, just so you know, at the end of the show, Rick is going to bless us with some music. So stay tuned. Don't leave too soon and you'll miss the music. So, Rick, when did your love affair with music and jazz specifically begin?
Well, music, it kind of started when I was could have been like a real toddler. I was dancing around in a circle with my grandmother and my aunt. And and I believe there was music, there was music playing while we were dancing. And I believe the music coming out of the radio was something like, the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand or something to that effect. And while I was kind of, dancing in a circle with them, holding hands, and we're having so much fun, I thought, wow, I wonder if it's possible to grow up and be like those guys who are playing the music and bringing all that joy to us, And who are those guys playing that music? You know what I mean? So right there, I got an interest that, it might be fun to be the ones delivering the music that was making a difference for people at that moment, So that was music in general. And then I think jazz kind of started, I was in a library and I kind of opened up a drawer or something by accident or who knows. And I saw all these records and I'm like, what is this? And there were so many of them and they were all these different artists. And I'm like, who are these people and why don't I know about them? Because at that point I was, listening to the music on the radio and I was studying classical music because that's what, your teacher taught you back then when you went to take lessons. They just would teach classical music. So I had the classical music and I had the music on the radio and I'm like, what is all this? And then I started taking those records out of the library and I was like, something is up here, and I need to get to the bottom of what's going on. So I really started to listen to that music from there. And I noticed that it resonated with my own personal creative interest to improvise at the piano.
Okay. And how old were you when you were in that library and found those records?
Probably a teenager, relatively young. I mean, I was in school. I could have been in middle school or early high school, but probably middle school. It could have been 8th or 9th grade or something, but somewhere in that region. And I just happened to stumble across it. And next thing I knew, I was like, I need to, figure out what's going on here. And I started to listen to that music and take those records out of the library.
Okay. So are you self-taught? Did you train at like Juilliard or something like that?
Well, I would have to say both because what happened with me was I started playing the piano mainly because I thought Santa had brought this thing into our house when I was a kid. I stayed up to watch Santa as long as I could. And I didn't want to get caught watching Santa because my parents weren't wild about that idea at all. So I kind of sneaked around the corner at some point and saw someone behind, something large coming into the house and a heavy set, someone heavy set at the back of moving it and coming through the door. And so I figured that must be Santa. And, that's as good as I'm going to get without getting caught. So the next day was Christmas, and there was this thing that obviously Santa had brought in. I guess he couldn't fit it down the chimney. I was trying to figure out how this whole thing happened. But anyway, I was like, if Santa brought this and went through all that trouble, I better figure out what the heck it is.
Right.
So so I was figuring it out on my own, and I was very happy to do that. I'm like, I'm going to figure this out on my own without anybody knowing. I'll get to the bottom of it. So I'm still getting to the bottom of it. I found it an endless journey, but it's a journey I enjoy because it just brings me, it brings me constant intellectual stimulation, artistry, humanity, humbleness, because it's so vast. All of these good qualities come from this journey. So I figure I might as well just keep up, just stay on the ship.
Good. I'm glad you did. So tell me about your creative process. Like when you write a song, do you write music?
I do. I do. So I've done everything from being a songwriter, just writing pop songs and stuff, to, symphonic music. I actually had a orchestral piece recorded by the London Symphony Orchestra quite a long time ago. And, I could have gotten involved in that. A lot of things I get involved in, it's like, well, what's going to happen how am I going to find an orchestra to play this stuff, But I was chosen by Master Musicians Collective was a label, and they chose like 13 American composers to record. Each one of them had a piece recorded by the London Symphony. So, that's that. But then I have a master's degree in jazz composition. So I have, my own jazz compositions, and then I arrange standards. I try to personalize everything I do. So, if you hear me play a classic old jazz song, hopefully you'll hear a little stamp that makes it, different, my version different from any other version. So there, the compositional part comes out of me, and then improvising is kind of, in a way, it's very compositional as well. All of those great, and all the great jazz musicians, of course, were improvisers, but going all the way back, I mean, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, they were all phenomenal improvisers.
Okay. I love it. So do you just sit down and start playing and then the song grows organically? Or do you write the words and then put the music when you're writing something original?
It really depends. For example, Jazz for Peace started out as a poem, and it was just a reaction to me because I happened to get a phone call. I got tipped off on 9/11 that something was going on down at the World Trade Center by someone on Wall Street. And I was, the woman who called me was absolutely frazzled. And she's a photographer and had taken pictures of me the day before. And I said, listen, listen, just stay put. I'm going to go up on the roof and just see what's going on. Because I could see it from the roof of my building. I was on a 5th floor walk up, less than a quarter of a mile from the Twin Towers. Where are you located, by the way?
In New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I was less than a quarter of a mile at the Lower East Side. If you people live in New Jersey, they know New York City pretty well.
Yeah.
So, so I'm down there, I go up on and I see it. And so I didn't have a piano to, do anything. I'm staring at it. The only thing that I could do was write words down on a piece of paper that just came out of me anyway. So that on that situation, it started out with words. And then later I put those words to music. But, it depends. It can start out as a melody and then you put the words to it. It can be a melody that never has words and just remains a melody. Sometimes I take a melody that someone else wrote and I write the lyrics to that. So, for example, there's a great composer who really partnered with Duke Ellington. A lot of people don't know this. We know like Lennon and McCartney, right? Or Elton John. Elton John, didn't write the words to those songs. Some people know it. I don't know, right?
No, and I'm a huge Elton John fan.
So yeah, let me tell you. So Elton John, all of Elton John's songs are melody only, and a guy named Bernie Taupin wrote all the words. If you look on the records and look in the backs, it says lyrics by Bernie Taupin.
Yeah.
So we only know Elton John, most people. But the bottom line is he wrote the lyrics, and it's the same with George Gershwin. There was Ira Gershwin, who I believe wrote all the words, and George Gershwin wrote the music. In some instances, like Duke Ellington, a lot of people don't know that Billy Strayhorn wrote the music and Duke Ellington's orchestra recorded it. So I
Mm,
actually wrote the words to a Billy Strayhorn piece called Isfahan, and I also wrote words to a John Coltrane piece called Lazy Bird. But like I said, in other situations, I have melodies that I wrote that have no words. So to answer your question, every which way, however it
mm,
comes out, however it comes out, whether it's only music or music first then lyrics, I don't really like, I just leave it open.
right,
I leave the funnel open for however
right.
it come through.
Got it. I got it. Now, since you brought up Jazz for Peace, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. You answered my one question, where the idea came from, but did you envision it being then what it is now?
I really didn't at all. It was really just a response to nine
Mm,
11,
mhm.
And I, just remembered that here I was, we were towards the end of the day. The world had obviously changed. I mean, this was
Mhm.
going to be ramifications. And I'm sitting here with a piece of paper with words on it that I had titled Jazz for Peace.
Mm,
What I did do, I believe that day, was I decided, hey, why don't I try? Because, we're always talking the talk. I mean, there's no
right.
shortage of talking the talk, right? You go
Yep.
to when every bar stool, you can find someone talking the talk, right?
Yep. Yep.
But like, why don't I try see if I can live up to these words for a day or two, actually live up to these words because you always see people, you know, talking that talk. And here
Yep.
I was with some powerful words. And, I figured I had lived enough to know that, music was a real kind of a barrier breaker. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it just broke. I mean, I had traveled all over the world already by that time, and I had seen for my own eyes, you don't have to speak the same language to connect
Mhm.
with people through music. You
Yep.
don't have to be from the same culture, the same religion, the
Mm,
same background, the same nothing. I mean, you could, erase creed. I mean, there is absolutely nothing that you can't break through with music.
agreed.
So and the art form of jazz was our country's greatest gift to the world. So not why not jazz? But what happened was, Kristen, one thing just led to another. So all I really had was a poem when we opened up again. And as
Mm,
we were locked down for as far as air travel and things like
right.
that for
Right.
for 2.5 weeks or something. It just barely opened up in time for my next, high profile gig, which
Okay.
was as the headliner at the Savannah Jazz Festival down in Georgia. And it was a big deal. So right when they opened up, I had to get to the airport quick and get on
Okay.
that plane and get down there. And here I was, in front of 8,500 people. And I was on a podcast the other day, kind of joking around. The guy was laughing. I said, Edgar Allan Poe and, all those. Oh, I mean, yeah, they would have been salivating, you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
have this opportunity. Those, these great poets never had the chance that I'm sitting with, right? Because
Right.
I'm the headliner at this festival. I'm in front of 8,500 people and I'm not even a poet, but I
Right.
got poem
Oh, oh,
you know? So
got
here
it.
I am that like I said, I'm in a situation that Edgar Allan Poe probably never was in his whole life.
Mm-mm.
And all these other great poets, I just thought of him, but Langston Hughes, whoever, forget it. They never had this opportunity, but I do. And I just read the poem. That's all in front of 8,500 people. Well, that just resonated, and it resonated all the way back up to New York State where
Mhm.
upstate New York, where I had another high profile gig right around the beginning of October. And those promoters called me up and they're like, hey, we heard about this poem. Man, people are, wow. Oh my God. It really affected people. What are you going to do? Are you going to have that? They planted the seed. They said, are you going to put that to music by our
Mm.
concert? And they just like said, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe and now all of a sudden I'm like, that's not a bad idea.
Right.
It's just so I did put it to music by that time. And basically that concert was we started the concert with that.
Mhm.
And when the two things happened, one, there was pre-promotion. So I received a call from, that local newspaper, and they wanted to ask me about the poem, and they were asking me questions and this, that, and the other. And I just happened to say in the call, I just happened to say off the top of my head, I said, if we fill our souls up with, creativity and artistry and
Mhm.
humanity and intellectuality and our greatest, our greatest qualities as human beings that we already have, if we were to fill our souls up with those greatest qualities, we would have a better chance at
Mhm.
avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction.
Yeah.
And that got lifted all on its own, and again, I tell people, I mean, we try so hard, I'm sure I'm sure I'm no different than you. We
Right.
try our asses off, right? To,
Yeah.
to do our thing and
Mhm.
get nowhere sometimes, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I said this thing off the top of my head. And if you Google Rick DellaRatta famous quote, it's listed on every famous quote. I didn't even know there was a famous quote website,
Yeah.
but all over the world, these things in all different, all different languages, you know what I mean? Is this quote. And so that happened, and like I said, I didn't know that was going to happen. I found out years later. I'd be looking for one thing and I couldn't find what I was looking for, but I'd find something on Google where someone listed his favorite 50 quotes of all time. And, he had me listed with, all of these great,
Wow.
yeah. So it was crazy. He had me listed with Martin Luther King and,
Wow.
yeah, it was crazy. So, you know, like I said, things just started to take on a life of their own.
Mhm.
And I kind of had a little bit of responsibility, I felt, I mean,
Yeah.
one was the responsibility to try to live up to the words of that poem.
Yeah.
So, I kept going with that, but now I had a famous quote. I had a concert that I had started, they had announced that I started out with Jazz for Peace. So I tried to just satisfy these little things, not knowing that once you satisfy one thing,
Mhm.
somebody else says something off the charts, and now you have to kind of satisfy that.
Yeah.
So, one thing led to another. I started doing concerts around New York City. And after a while, I got a letter from Michael Bloomberg, the mayor, just saying,
Mm.
hey, I've been hearing about these concerts you're doing. And I just want to tell you, we are so proud of you and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh man, I got Laura. Let me live up to that for a little bit. Let me create my own record of enough. Now I'm
Right.
doing it around the country and all that stuff. At the 500th concert, which I was hoping maybe I could retire or something, I got one from Barack Obama,
Mm.
and his
What?
with what he is. So, and it was incredible. I mean, the words are just unbelievable. The thing is, it's like whether we have our political, we like this guy, we don't like that guy. I
Right.
don't
Right.
care. If you say something true, you know what I
Right.
mean? I am going to try to acknowledge that, acknowledge those words. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, everyone agrees that, Adolf Hitler was bad news, right? But that
Right.
doesn't mean you shouldn't be a vegan because he was a vegan. You know what I mean? You can't
Right.
now you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have quotes from all kinds of people, and I think I look at his letter's phenomenal, these other guys, and I would find too Republicans and Democrats showing up at my events. I remember one
Mhm.
time in Las Vegas, and I said, I thought I saw these two guys like arguing on TV or something, Fox said, yeah, they hate each other. I said,
Mhm.
what's going? They said, well, they both believe in helping this outstanding cause that you are, here to do. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's the thing. It does unite people in a positive way.
Yes. Yes. So when did it become Jazz for Peace, the organization? And
Well, what happened was, truthfully, I was doing some concerts around town, and one of the places I was playing was a piano factory.
Mm.
This guy had been a fan of mine anyway. He had come to see me at a club in New York called Birdland. And, I had some great musicians that would play in my bands because New York has so many great musicians here.
Mhm.
And I was playing with these like superstar musicians that would play with me. And, sometimes we would knock people's socks off, and this guy he only had a piano factory and he was like, oh my God, you guys just, whoa, wow. And he was like, I didn't want you to play in my piano factory. I said, well, I got this Jazz for Peace, great. So once, I'm doing these little things in his piano factory. And one day he comes up to me, he says, come into my office. I want to show you something. He says, listen, see this? This is a, what do they call it? A domain name. And this
Mm-hmm.
is a blah, blah, blah. And you can call it jazzforpeace.org. And you
Mm-hmm.
can do that. And he's telling me that you have your own email address. You know what I mean? So this guy kind of got that started. You see what I
Okay.
mean? And
Okay.
then what happened was once you got it started, it's like, okay, what is your mission statement? What do you want to do?
Right.
And we had already stuff had come out of little, goals and stuff. And I had already stated that I wanted to, donate musical instruments to underprivileged children. I wanted to bring music back into the schools. And
Mhm.
the benefit concert series had started. I figured we'd do a handful. There's probably like at least 20 outstanding causes in New York City. Little did I know there were over 60,000.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it was hilarious. It really was because, it was such a learning experience for me. One thing just led to another. The next thing you know, we were kind of off to the races with these events, not only all over the country, but eventually all over the world.
That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. I went on the Jazz for Peace website and I was like, okay, this is pretty amazing. Like grants are not loans. They don't have to be repaid. So I know a
Right.
few nonprofit organizations that I'm going to give them the information. So that's awesome. So I know you've worked with like a ton of the great, but is there anyone you'd like to collaborate with like now?
You know, right now, because of the mission of Jazz for Peace and the importance to recognize, to jazz as our country's greatest gift to the world and the great art form that it is, I don't know if there's anybody I wouldn't like to collaborate with. You know what I mean?
Got
It's
it.
like
Yeah.
if someone called me up out of the blue and said, "Hey, Rick, I know you might not know me. We've never met, and we've never worked, but I just want to tell you, or just wrote an email to info
Hmm.
at jazzforpeace.org, which is what organizations do, by the way. Hopefully, the
Right.
ones that you will share this with, they just
Yes.
send us a little email saying, "Hey, I reviewed a couple things and blah blah blah." And if an artist did that, I think I would basically try to find common ground and do something with with that artist,
Okay.
collaborate in one way or another, whether it's assisting that artist with an artist grant, which we do,
Hmm.
or whether it's doing something collaboratively musical, you know. But I would definitely consider the possibility.
Okay. So my next question for you is what would in a perfect world, your ideal concert look like? The venue, the backup musician, all of that. What would that look like for you? Or has it already happened?
Well, people have asked me that question, and mostly my answer, generally speaking, is I really like when the magic is in the room. So, in other
Mm,
words, it doesn't
mhm.
have to be anything except the magic, because it's
Got
very
it.
hard to get everything to line up when it comes to jazz or even in music.
Right.
There's been times when I found myself, on this incredible piano, but I'm only, I'm in, it's like a 50s band or something, the famous 50s band, and I'm just playing,
Mm,
something like that. You know what I mean?
got it.
Which is
Got it.
fine, but wouldn't it be great if I was able to play, do my thing as an
Yeah.
artist? No, not, then I'll find myself, okay, we'll let you play whatever you want, but you got to play this piano that has like no key, three keys missing, hasn't
Yeah.
been tuned in like 5 years, that kind of thing.
Got
Or,
it.
there's a whole lot of people at this wedding that's going to pay you some great, really a lot, or whatever, a bar mitzvah. I don't do them now, but I used to do them when I was a kid. And, but you can't, you know what I mean? We just want to hear you play, the latest
Right.
songs by Prince so we can dance or Michael Jackson or whatever.
Got it.
Or, here's a chance to do your thing, but you know what? There's only like 7 people come,
Mm,
whatever. You know what I mean? So
got it.
it's hard to get it all to line up. But I told a story of once I was doing something for American Indians and every single thing you could imagine was going wrong. My flight was delayed. I couldn't get the rent-a-car, some problem with getting the approval for some rent-a-car, something wrong with it. Then there was traffic and there was this and there was that. I couldn't rehearse with the musicians. I didn't even know who they were. It was in New Mexico. It was on an Indian, with an Indian reservation or something. I'm
Right.
like, what is going on? We finally get to the place. I walk in there and there's nothing I could do except play with the musicians. I didn't know their name. I didn't even have a chance to like greet them.
Right.
They had been people, all these people were packed into this place and they had been waiting. But you know what? The magic was there. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? The
Mhm.
enthusiasm, the intensity, like you could cut the air with a chainsaw. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It was the end. So it was so magical. And I just remember, we played and was like, wow, this is, and the people they were just going crazy. They just had bonded with the music and the mission and just everything had come together. And I'm like trying to figure out these guys' names. And I'm like, hey man, what is what did you say? I don't want everyone to know I don't know your name, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And he gives me his name and then, what about the drummer? What's his name? His, and the guy, his name is Louis Speaking Eagle. I said, I don't want to know his pet's name. What's his name? You know what I mean? Or, no, that's his name. What? Sure. When I announced this, they're not going to laugh. No, that's his, he was an Indian drummer.
Right. Right.
So you know what I mean? But the point is the magic is, so I'll take that magic and that intensity and that magic between the music and the people. I will
Mhm.
take that first and foremost anytime. You know what I mean?
Got it.
I don't care if it's in a barn or Carnegie Hall.
Got it.
I'll take that first and foremost. Now, with that, if you can get me, a handmade Fazioli piano or whatever, you can get me a prestigious concert hall, a Carnegie Hall or whatever, if you can put all that together, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's my ideal situation. Now, my
With the
ultimate
magic.
yeah, but now to embellish what you're saying, my ultimate ideal situation would be to unite all of these great artists. Like you're telling me, who would I collaborate with? I'd
Mhm.
love to do something where I could collaborate and involve all of some of the world's greatest artists with me
Got it.
and separately and whatever in some kind of a collaborative effort where we had all of that magic together and all of these great artists along with me. Now that would be the ultimate.
Got it. All right. So, sir, what is on your horizon? What's in your pipeline? A tour, an album, a book?
Well, one thing we're doing, I usually do things that when you hear me describe it, you think I'm crazy.
Mm.
Like back then, I used to tell people, well, I want to take this poem and then I want to unite Israeli Palestinians and Americans at the United Nations. And they were like,
Mm.
oh, okay, that's nice. You're crazy, but you're not crazy. You're a nice kind of crazy person. And so, that's the thing. But then I did do it. You know what I mean? We did play at the
Right.
United Nations, and that's where I started to get all these letters from around the world years later from people resonating like, you know what, that was amazing that he did that,
Right.
even though they didn't, they were late to the party, they eventually, so right now I'm trying to think what would be the greatest thing I could do right now in our time and to stay along the lines of being a really nice but crazy person. I think the best thing I could do right now is protect our civil rights,
Mhm.
freedom of speech, the right for journalists to report and to do their job like they're supposed to do
Yeah.
and report on what they see, whether or not it's popular or not, but to
Right.
report on that and to protect innocent people in times of war,
Mm.
innocent civilians from being bombed. And all of that relates to a musical piece that I have called Free JA that I'll be playing for you later. And it's
Okay.
basically a free improvisation, but it's free JA comes from the word jazz that is originally spelled JASS, which
Mm.
is from a Creole word. I found this out when I went to Haiti and they had a big sign, welcome jazz for peace, JASS.
Oh.
And then I was able to find out that was actually a Creole word. Then we took it and screwed it up and put the Z's on it. So I took the S's off, the Z's off. Now I've got free JA, which stands for someone that we need to free, because we need to protect our rights, freedom of speech, and all that kind of stuff. So if I could do that, That would probably be like a major contribution. So after this 37th performance of
Right.
JA, I got a call and the person told me, hey, you know, what you're doing and what Roger Waters doing, Noam Chomsky, all these other people that are involved with me.
Mhm.
They said, you know what? The New York Times has taken notice and they are calling for the release
Mm,
of Julian Assange. So the New
okay.
York Times joined us and they said five other major news, things. So we have made progress, but I think, yeah, if I could do that, because in all honesty, I don't want to lose our rights to freedom of speech.
Right.
I don't want innocent civilians being bombed. And I definitely don't want anyone who has journalistic integrity to be attacked for reporting on something that that to doing their job.
Right.
So
Awesome.
that's the kind of big bite that's the kind of big fish. That's the kind of big fish I've got on the line at the moment.
Okay. Oh, that's a huge fish. And
It's
I'm
a huge
sure you
fish.
will. I'm sure you'll get it done, Rick. Thank
I hope
you.
so. I'm going after big game, Kristen.
Yes. But I mean, why not?
Why not? I
Mhm.
mean, I'm in the position where I might as well, it's all led up to all of my achievements have given me the privilege to stand for some of our most important human rights at this time. So that is something I want to do. And I want people to stand with me, consider the fact that, what, I hate to say it, but if once you lose those rights, it's a
Mhm.
little late in the game
Yeah,
because
it's
it's
all
hard to get them
downhill.
back. And there's too much going on now with censorship, and you
Yeah,
see it around, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's all
we gotta,
downhill.
yes, and I'll tell you, you don't want to wait. You don't want to be out. You don't want to be late to that party, because
No,
when you lose those rights, it's a lot easier to preserve the rights you have than try to get them back after you lose.
absolutely.
So that's where I'm
Absolutely.
at.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Rick. That is the end of the formal part of our conversation. Now we get to the fun stuff. We're going to play 10 candid questions. Now, these are just 10 random questions, some either or, some require a little more fleshed out answer. The only rule is you have to answer them candidly. You ready?
Great.
Question number one. What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve, Kristen, is hypocrisy.
Mm, that's you. You're the first person that ever said that. I usually get people that are late or liars. Hypocrisy. I like that a lot. All
Great.
right. Question number two. Tea or coffee?
For right this second, I'll say coffee.
Okay.
Lifetime, I have to say tea. So, it depends
Okay.
on what you mean. Do you mean like in the present or in the long term?
What do you, if you had to pick one and you were out at any time, which would you pick? And I guess that depends on what time it is or what mood you're in, but I guess generally, which do you prefer?
Well, right this second in the current, I possibly drink more coffee than tea, but over my lifetime, it would definitely be tea. And so,
Okay.
yeah. So
All right. All
it's just
right.
depends on
Good
my time.
enough. All right. Question number three. What do people misunderstand about you most?
The simplicity of that things that may seem complex about me really come from a very simple origin.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Question four. Cats or dogs?
For me personally, right now, I'll say dogs, even though I'm not wild about those really giant dogs, the ones
Right.
that are like tall. That's a bit much for me. It's like, oh my God, that's a lot. But,
Right.
within reason, I do like small dogs.
Okay. Question five. Tell me about the three most influential people in your life and how they impacted you.
That's a tough one. Okay. I'll say, hmm, well, I'll start out with Chopin because
Okay.
I think he was an amazingly lyrical pianist and composer, and his nuance is fantastic. And
Mm,
then I'll move forward up to there. to, I would either say Monk or John Coltrane. I'll go all the way up though and say John Coltrane because
Okay.
I think he was a transcendent and spiritual musical artist who, was able to take the the baton from all of the music that came up to there and
Hmm.
bring it to a whole nother realm and also adds a spiritual aspect to that, almost saintly in some of what he did. And then I'll go from a third case, I'll say somebody who is completely out of music completely. I'll just off the top of my head, I'll say Aldous Huxley, but he's
Mm.
represents a lot of people who were just, but well, you know what I'm going to say? I'm sorry, I'm going to say Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky,
Okay.
those type of people, the
Okay.
Dostoevsky, Aldous Huxley types that, you know, were able to say quite a bit without having to play a note of music that
Hmm.
can influence a musician in a humanitarian way, but also in a spiritual way, influence
Yeah,
him spiritually.
I agree. I agree. Huh. Interesting. So next question. Night owl or morning person?
Used to be night person. I used to be 9 to 5. 9 to 5 as a jazz musician was 9 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Hmm.
But now I've been involved in things like alpine skiing and, early morning swimming and things of that nature. So right now I'll have to say morning at the moment.
Okay. Who is on your personal playlist?
Okay. Let's see. I'll have to say, well, I'll have to say some of the people I already mentioned, like John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, but also some of the other great singers and pianists and jazz instrumentalists, etc. Your Chick Corea's,
Hmm.
Herbie Hancock, who's also somewhat of a fan of Jazz for Peace, wrote us some wonderful letter once. And Etta James, was a great singer. I've been singing one of her songs recently, one of the songs, one of her standards. So yeah, people of that stature.
Okay, awesome. Next question. What's your favorite curse word? If you have one.
Well, it would be an Icelandic word called anskutin, which means shit. But the way they say it is anskutin.
Nice. I'm gonna start saying it. What's one question you wished I'd ask you, and how would you have answered it?
Let's see. Okay. Let's say you wanted to ask me, hey, I might have a nonprofit in New Jersey that would be interested in the helpful step forward of Jazz for Peace. What do you provide and how can they get started? So I would answer that of what we provide is a world-class cultural event at no cost to you. So
Hmm.
that's like their own fundraiser, right? But then plus all of the staffing and the guidance and the expertise to make that event a success. So when you put both of those things together using our empowerment tree model, that's why you have the testimonials from all of our previous grant recipients. That's why they're kind of, people say it's almost too good to be true. But when you put those two things together, you have something that can make it a profoundly positive difference in a lot of ways because it provides not only money, you can't throw money at something and fix the problem. And the sooner we
Right.
learn that, the better. But it also provides important qualities like, rejuvenating their supporters and expanding their donor base, getting them sponsors at the local and at the national level, publicity
Okay.
and awareness, new and prestigious supporters, and the sharing of fundraising techniques. And now, how can they get started? They can get started by by listening to your podcast and
Hmm.
then sending an email to info@jazzforpeace.org.
Got it. And that was, believe it or not, the 10th and final question. How can my listeners connect with you and Jazz for Peace? But you can say it again.
I did. Yeah. So what you want to do is, I'll embellish that. Listen to, listening to this podcast all the way through. And then check out a couple things like, you can go to jazzforpeace.org, which is our website, and you can
Hmm.
watch a little video that says how to get a grant in 3.5 minutes. And boy, only 3.5 minutes. You can watch that. and you can send us an email. Now, for me, if you can spell my name, and if you're, if you're looking at this podcast, I'm sure you'll see my spelling a name. It's rickdellaratta.com. So that's
Mm,
RickDellaratta.com. And that's a good place to start. You could even start with Rick DellaRatta famous quote or something
mm,
like that. Some of the things
mhm,
we've already said, and just check out a few things. If you want to, you can go on Google and just type in NY Times Jazz for Peace, and you'll see a press release that announces the New York Times joining us in this fight to free Julian Assange. And then what I want you to for sure do, watch the video of Jazz for Peace live in Nigeria.
nice. I'm definitely going to do that. So, all right, Rick, this is a moment I don't know about everybody that's listening that I have been waiting for because it wouldn't be a spotlight if we did not get to hear you play something. So,
Great. Now here's the deal. Here's what I've been doing in this free JA thing because it's free. It's a free form jazz thing. I just make it up. I have no idea what I'm going to play, and it's going to be unique to this moment in time, to
nice.
you, your show, everything. So what I do is I take a piece and I play a little bit of that to draw us into it, and then I go off to kind of hold you into the, the journey that who the heck knows where it's going to end,
I
or
love
where
it.
it's going to go. So I'm giving you three choices today. You can either hear me for the song I play in the beginning. It can be a folk song. Okay. It can be a rock song like Jimi Hendrix,
Mm,
or it can be a song like an old standard, like a Etta James. What would you choose for me to the lead in?
I'm going to go with the old standard.
Okay. So this is called A Sunday Kind of Love. And
Mm,
like I said, it was originally recorded by the great Etta James.
indeed.
And then it will go into free JA.
Yes.
I want a Sunday kind of love. Love to last past Saturday night. I'd like to know it's more than love at first sight. I want a Sunday kind of love. Do my Sunday dreaming, know my Sunday scheming. Every minute, every hour, every day. I'm hoping to discover a certain kind of lover who can show me the way. My arms need someone to unfold, keep me warm when Mondays grow cold. A love for all my life, to have and to hold. I want a Sunday kind of love.
That was awesome. I had my eyes closed. That was amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for that, for sharing your gift with me and my listeners. That was awesome. I can't wait for the world to hear this. Honestly, I really, really can't. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, great. Well, I'm so happy. I love to hear the joy from, you know, the people, the person that, anyway, I mean, it makes me feel good. Your words makes me feel like we did something real good today. Thank you so much.
And I
Appreciate it.
believe we did. I truly do. And guys, all of Rick's and Jazz for Pieces contact info, links to his music will be in the show notes. And Rick, I really can't thank you enough for today. It's been a long time coming, feels like forever since we first talked. And I'm just glad we got it done. Thank you for the work you do with Jazz for Peace, for your music, for all of it. Just thank you.
Well, thank you, Kristen. And in the words of the immortal Sam Cooke, it's been a long time coming.
Yes, indeed. All right, guys. Don't you guys forget when you're visiting websites to visit mine at www.thecandidshop.com, candid with a K. Listen to an episode, drop me a review, share the show with your friends, family, neighbors. And until next time, I want everyone out there to keep it safe, keep it healthy, and keep it candid.